The winds speak in hushed tones, their whispers barely more than breath against your ear. You pause, the air thick with a sense of something ancient, something forgotten. It calls to you, beckoning you toward the lost paths where the winds once roared. Now silent, Hadad. The name trembles on the tip of your tongue, but you are afraid to speak it too loudly. It is not a name known by many in these times, this god of storms, of thunder, of both destruction and creation. The winds that once answered to his call now wander aimlessly, shifting from place to place, never finding their way home. Hadad, the storm god, cast out from the heavens, exiled from his domain. Why? It is a question that haunts the bones of history, one that few dare to ask. Those who once knew him, those who once feared and revered him are long gone, forgotten in the sands, swept away by the very storms he once commanded. There was a time, long ago, when Hadad was central to the lives of kings and commoners alike. The fertile plains of Canaan once knew his power, his storms blessing the crops and refreshing the earth. He was not a gentle god, no. His fury was unmatched. His lightning as much a promise of destruction as it was of rebirth. Yet in his exile, his power no longer serves the living, and the rituals that once celebrated his might have faded into silence. You hear the wind rise, just a breath stronger than before, as though the world itself remembers the god it has cast aside. But what happened to Hadad? What caused the storm to be silenced? Was it betrayal or weariness that led to his fall? The truth lies buried beneath centuries of dust, half forgotten in the cracks of forgotten temples and long forgotten scrolls. And yet the storm still stirs. A few still whisper his name in the darkness, though their voices tremble with the knowledge that some names should never be spoken aloud. You can almost feel it now, the electric charge in the air, the storm waiting just beyond the horizon. Hadad's presence lingers in the winds that touch your face, reminder of a time when gods walked the earth and ruled the skies. Now, you go in search of what remains of this god's story. But you must tread carefully. There are those who have tried to resurrect Hadad. Their names have been erased from the annals of history, their temples turned to dust, their rituals once sacred are now heretical, forbidden. To speak of Hadad, to invoke his name, is to summon more than just a forgotten deity, is to summon a storm that may never end. And yet you cannot help but wonder, what remains of the storm god in exile? Hadad's fall from grace is but a shadow of the greater mystery that surrounds him, a god once worshipped, now lost to the winds, seeking a way home. His story is hidden in the cracks of time, and you must walk the storm-swept path to uncover it. If you listen closely, you might hear the storm calling you back. The name Hadad trembles in your chest as the winds begin to grow louder, as though urging you onward. And so, you must continue, following the whispers, chasing the fragments of the past. The storm is not finished yet, not fully erased, and it waits, suspended in the silence that now reigns in the world. Now, let's get started with today's story. The air is thick, charged with an electricity that feels as though it could tear the world apart. You step forward, guided only by the whispers of those long-gone voices from the past, echoes of forgotten rituals. In the air, the faintest stirrings of Hadad's power linger, as though the storm god never truly left. He was once the ruler of winds and rain, lightning and thunder, a god whose name was revered in every corner of the ancient world. The people of Canaan, those who lived in the fertile plains, called upon him when they needed rain to nourish their crops or thunder to frighten away their enemies. The skies were his domain, and in his storms there was both terror and hope. Even the mightiest of gods are not immune to the whims of fate. Hadad's fall from grace was not a simple matter of betrayal, but of something far more unsettling. He was a god whose power was too great, too unruly. His storms, though necessary, became a source of fear. The once proud altars that had been built in his honor now lie in ruin, their stone offerings crumbling to dust. And yet, you sense his presence still, in the wind that stirs the dust at your feet. In the distant rumblings of thunder that shake the earth beneath you, Hadad was not a god who could be tamed. He was a force of nature, wild and untamed, just as the storms he commanded. His power was both a blessing and a curse, a gift to the people of Canaan, but one that could easily turn to destruction. It is said that, at the height of his worship, the people would offer sacrifices to him, goats, sheep, even children in some rituals, hoping to appease his fury and earn his favor. And yet, despite their best efforts, the storms would come, often with a violence that left whole villages destroyed in their wake. There's a mystery here, something hidden beneath the surface of Hadad's story. Was he cast out because of his power, or was it something darker? The priests who once served him speak in hushed tones of a great calamity, a catastrophe that sealed his fate. But what was it? No one knows for certain. All that remains are fragments of forgotten rituals, symbols of Hadad's once glorious reign that now serve as forbidden relics. One such symbol was the lightning bolt's image etched into countless stones, carved into the walls of temples and burned into the hearts of those who followed him. It was said to be a representation of Hadad's power, the very embodiment of his divine might. But there are whispers of a darker meaning behind the bolt, a meaning that only the most daring, or perhaps the most foolish, seek to understand. The lightning bolt was not just a symbol of power, it was also a key, a link between the mortal world and the divine. The ancient texts speak of rituals in which the lightning bolt was summoned to open the gates between the gods and men. Those who dared to perform these rituals were said to have been granted great knowledge, but at a terrible cost. No one knows what became of them, for they vanished into the storm, never to be seen again. Hadad's exile, it seems, was not simply a punishment, it was a release. The storm god's wrath was no longer confined to the heavens. It was unleashed upon the world, chaotic and unpredictable, scattering destruction wherever it struck. The people of Canaan learned to fear the storm, even as they longed for it. They could no longer control it, no longer call upon it for their own benefit. And so, the worship of Hadad faded, his name whispered only in secret, his followers lost to the winds. But the question lingers, like a storm cloud on the horizon. Why did Hadad fall? Was it his unruly power that led to his exile? Or was there something more to his story, something hidden in the very nature of the storms he commanded? You cannot help but wonder as you stand here. In the remnants of what was once a grand temple to Hadad, the wind carries his name, and it seems as though it could take you to the answers you seek. Yet the answers are not so simple. For every step you take forward, the storm grows more intense. The winds shift, the air thickens, and you realize that you are not merely walking through the past. You are walking into it, feeling the weight of Hadad's power stir around you. The winds of history are alive, and they carry the truth, though it is a truth not easily understood. Hadad's story is not one of simple worship and exile. It is a tale of power, of fear, of the uncontrollable forces of nature that even gods struggle to master. The wind stirs again, this time with more force, as if to remind you of the god who still haunts the skies. Hadad is gone, yes, but is he truly forgotten? You feel the storm grow stronger, the air crackling with energy, as if the god himself is reaching out from the winds. You wonder then, as the winds howl around you, how far does Hadad's power reach? And how much of it still lies in exile, waiting to be called upon once again? The truth, it seems, is hidden in the winds, in the very air you breathe. And you'll, like all who came before you, are left to seek it, guided only by the echoes of a god once forgotten. You stand before the altar, its stone surface weathered by centuries of wind, sand, and rain. It is a forgotten place, hidden from the world, and yet it thrums with a palpable energy. The air here is different charged, as though the very ground beneath your feet remembers what once occurred in this sacred space. The altar is small, simple in design, but its significance is far greater than its humble appearance suggests. You can feel it in the air, in the stillness that blankets the ruins. It is as if time itself is holding its breath, waiting for something to occur. And you, too, find yourself drawn to it, unable to resist the pull of an ancient power. This was once a place of sacrifice, a place where those who followed Hadad came to offer their devotion. But the offerings were not just for protection or favor. They were offerings to the storm rituals, meant to capture its power, to draw down lightning from the heavens, to summon the very wrath of Hadad himself. The altar sits at the center of a small circular platform, its surface carved with symbols that, to the untrained eye, appear to be nothing more than abstract patterns. But to those who understood Hadad's ways, these symbols were sacred, representing the storm in all its forms: thunder, lightning, wind, and rain. The lightning bolt, the most powerful and dangerous symbol, is etched deep into the stone at the center of the altar. Its jagged shape both beautiful and terrifying. It is said that in times of great need, the priests would come here, standing upon the platform, and perform a sacred ritual. They would call upon Hadad, using the symbols to guide the storm down from the heavens, to touch the earth with its destructive force. But there was a price to be paid. The lightning that descended from the sky did not come as a gift. It came as a wrathful force, a consuming fire that could destroy as easily as it could create. The power of the storm god was not to be controlled, not to be bent to the will of mortals. And yet, they tried. You trace your fingers over the ancient symbols, feeling the faint vibrations that pulse beneath the stone. They are calling to you. The very energy of Hadad's storm still lingering in the air. It is not just a relic, it is an invitation, a key to something forgotten. The ritual is still alive, in some form, in the very stones of this place. But what was the purpose of it? What was the true nature of the ritual that took place here? There are whispers, faint and unclear, of a hidden truth, the true cost of invoking Hadad. It is said that the ritual could not only call the storm, but also open a door to another realm, a realm where gods and men could meet face to face. But what happened to those who crossed that threshold? Some say they were granted power beyond imagination, while others believe they were lost to the storm, their souls consumed by the very force they sought to command. The ritual is shrouded in mystery, and yet you sense that the wind picks up, howling around you with a ferocity that feels like the breath of a god. The distant rumble of thunder vibrates deep in your chest, a forewarning of something both ancient and dangerous. The air has become thick with anticipation, crackling with energy. You stand before the altar, feeling it at its storm pulsing beneath the surface of the world, waiting to burst forth. But what are you truly seeking? Power, knowledge, or perhaps you have simply been drawn here by the storm itself. A force that cannot be denied, a presence that calls to something deep within you, something primal. Hadad's storms were not mere tempests. They were living, breathing forces, imbued with the god's very essence. To understand Hadad is to understand the fury of the heavens, the violence of creation. The storms that he commanded were not just physical phenomena, they were sacred, divine, and dangerous. It is said that when Hadad's storms descended, they brought with them both destruction and life. The rains would flood the parched earth, bringing crops to bloom, but they would also wash away villages, leaving behind nothing but ruin. The lightning, sharp and sudden, would burn the land, yet it was also the source of rebirth. The very energy that destroyed was also the energy that renewed. But after his exile, something changed. The storms did not behave as they once had. They grew erratic, wild, uncontrollable. The god's power, once a force for balance, now raged without purpose, without direction. Was it revenge? Was it punishment? Or was it simply the nature of Hadad, a god who could not be contained, a force too vast to be understood? There are stories of those who called upon Hadad after his exile, desperate to reclaim his power, to summon the storms back to their lands. They sought the glory of the past, the strength that Hadad had once given to his people. But those who tried to invoke the storm found themselves overwhelmed. The rituals were no longer reliable, no longer safe. The storms came, yes, but they came with a fury that could not be controlled. In the ancient texts, there are hints of this transformation. One passage, barely legible, speaks of a storm unchained. A storm that raged not just across the land, but through the hearts and minds of those who sought to call it forth. The storm became a mirror, reflecting the desires, the fears, and the madness of those who summoned it. In the end, it consumed them, leaving nothing behind but a blackened, barren earth. And yet still, the storm calls. Even now, as you stand in the ruins, you feel it growing closer, its energy vibrating through the ground beneath your feet. It is not just a natural phenomenon, it is alive, a god that cannot be forgotten, a force that will not be denied. Hadad may be in exile, but his power endures, lurking beneath the surface of the world, waiting for the right moment to break free. What is the true nature of this storm? Is it the god's wrath, a punishment for those who failed him? Or is it something else? Something more ancient, more primal? Hadad's storms were never just about destruction. They were a way of life, a cycle of death and rebirth. The storm was a god's promise that even in the darkest times, there was the potential for renewal. But what happens when that promise is broken? What happens when the storm rages without purpose? You feel the answer in the air around you, thick with the electric charge of a coming storm. It is not just the storm you seek. It is the God himself, his fury, his power. And you are standing at the very threshold of it. You cannot turn back now. The winds howl louder, the earth shakes beneath your feet. The storm is coming, and it is coming for you. There is a moment, a pause, before the first bolt of lightning strikes the earth. The storm has been unleashed. But what of you? What happens when the storm's fury meets the heart of a mortal? Do you survive, or do you become part of the chaos? Hadad's fury is not something that can be easily understood. It is not a force that can be controlled. It is raw, untamed, and bound to nothing but the will of the God himself. And now, as you stand here in the heart of the storm, you realize that you are no longer just an observer. You are a part of it, swept up in the power of the God you sought to understand. The lightning crackles in the sky, lighting up the darkness. The thunder rolls, a deep rumbling voice from the heavens, speaking in a language older than time. The storm is here, is all around you, and you have become part of it, part of the God's eternal rage. As the winds whip around you, you realize that you are not just standing in the remnants of a forgotten temple. You are standing at the very edge of the storm. A storm that has been waiting for you, waiting for this moment, waiting for the one who would dare to listen. Hadad's exile has ended. The storm is his return. The thunder rumbles again, as if to echo the unspoken truth that resounds in the very air you breathe. The storm does not seek your permission, it simply arrives, as it always has, without warning. But there is more to this storm than mere wind and lightning. It holds a deeper mystery, one that stretches beyond the ruins and into the distant past. A king, once favored by Hadad, now lost to the ages, had once walked this land, and it is his story that has become intertwined with the storm's fury. The king's name is all but forgotten, but his tale remains etched into the ancient scrolls, whispered in the dark corners of forgotten temples. His name, like Hadad's, was once sacred, revered by the people of Canaan. He was a king whose rule was marked by the blessings of the storm god, a king who invoked Hadad's favor to secure his kingdom's prosperity. Under his reign, the land was rich, the crops plentiful, and the people loyal. He commanded the rains, called forth the thunder, and his kingdom flourished in the power of the storms. But such power is never without its cost. The storm god is not a being that can be tamed or controlled. To seek favor from Hadad is to seek both strength and danger, for the storm is both a protector and a destroyer. The king, in his arrogance, came to believe that he could command Hadad, that he could use the god's power for his own ends. He believed that he had bent the storm to his will, that the god was no more than a tool to be wielded for his kingdom's glory. It is said that in his pride, the king demanded more from Hadad than any mortal should. He sought to control the storm, to bend it to his vision of grandeur. But the god does not serve, and Hadad's wrath is not so easily diverted. The king's hubris did not go unnoticed. One fateful day, the storm that had once blessed the kingdom became a force of destruction. The skies darkened, the winds howled, and the rain poured down in torrents. Lightning cracked the heavens, striking the heart of the royal palace itself. The people watched in terror as the storm god's fury was unleashed, as though the heavens themselves had turned against their king. What happened next remains unclear. Some say the king perished in the storm, struck down by the very god he had sought to control. Others say he was cast into exile, banished by Hadad's wrath to wander the earth, a forgotten figure lost to time. But one thing is certain, his kingdom was never the same. Storm, once a source of life and renewal, became a symbol of ruin. And the king, once favored, was left to face the consequences of his actions. But the question lingers. Why did Hadad's fury consume the king in such a way? Was it the king's pride, his desire to control the storm that led to his downfall? Or was it something more? The ancient texts speak of a hidden truth, one that has been obscured by the sands of time. The king's fall was not just the result of his arrogance, it was a cosmic shift, a breaking of the natural order. The power of the storm is not a gift to be hoarded or controlled. It is a force of nature, as untamable as the winds themselves. To seek dominion over it is to risk being consumed by it. Hadad's exile was not merely a punishment for his own actions, but a warning to those who would dare to challenge the balance of the world. The king's fall was but a small part of a greater cosmic upheaval. The storm god, once the protector, had become a force of chaos, and the kingdom that had once been blessed was now cursed. As you stand in the ruins of the temple, the winds whipping around you, you realize that the story of the king and Hadad is not just a tale of divine retribution. It is a warning. A warning that even the gods are bound by forces beyond their control. And no matter how powerful one may be, there are some forces in this world, some powers that cannot be bent to your will. The storm, like Hadad, is wild, untamed, and beyond comprehension. And still, the storm rages, as it always has, waiting for the next to seek its power, to bend it to their will. The king's fall was not an isolated event. It was part of a larger pattern, a divine collapse, a warning that those who seek to control the storm will always be consumed by it. Hadad's exile was not just a punishment hit, it was a signal that the balance of the world had been shattered. The king, once a favored mortal, was but a casualty of that divine rupture. And now, as you stand in the shadow of his ruin, you realize that the storm is not just an external force. It is a reflection of the chaos within the world itself. The winds howl louder now, as if to emphasize the point. The storm has not forgotten, and neither should you. As the storm clouds swirl overhead, you find yourself drawn deeper into the crumbling landscape, away from the altar and its devastating power. The winds that carry the scent of earth and rain guide you forward, though you have no map to follow. Something primal compels you to continue. It is here, amid the ruins of what seems to be nothing, that you feel the presence of the god, the stirrings of Hadad, like a faint whisper at the edges of your senses. There is something hidden here, something lost to the world, shrouded in dust and time. The land itself seems to hold its breath, and the closer you get, the more you can sense it's something ancient. It's forgotten by men, but not erased from the world. It calls to you, urging you to uncover its secret. Come upon it slowly, as if the earth itself is reluctant to reveal its hidden treasure. And then, as though the very ground shifts to open before you, the entrance appears a narrow fissure between rocks. Barely noticeable, but for the way the wind seems to press you towards it, as if guiding you. Inside, the air is thick, heavy with the scent of age and ancient power. The darkness is near absolute, but you feel no fear. The walls whisper in a language long lost to time, each mark, each symbol telling a story, though you cannot yet decipher it. They are not the symbols you saw earlier, those of Hadad's storm and the bolt of lightning. No, these are different, more intricate, more esoteric. They pulse with an energy that is ancient, forbidden, and raw. You step deeper into the temple, your footsteps echoing in the quiet, though the very silence seems to hum with an electric charge. The stones underfoot are worn smooth from the passage of time, yet somehow firm in their place, as if they remember the weight of worship. The energy of devotion that once flooded this sacred space. At the heart of the temple, you find what you've been searching for, a small, raised platform, much like the altar you encountered earlier. But this one is different. This one is no mere offering place. It is an altar of knowledge, a place of communion with the divine, where gods and men were meant to meet. The air around it thrums with power. The walls seem to bend toward you, closing in with an almost sentient purpose, the stones warm beneath your touch, as though reacting to your presence. Upon the platform rests a stone tablet, its surface dark and smooth, carved with symbols unlike any you have seen before. These are not mere representations of the storm, nor are they the familiar hieroglyphs of Hadad's worship. They are something else entirely, language you feel you should know, a truth that calls to you, even if you cannot yet understand. The very act of approaching it seems to open something in your mind, connection to the god, to the storm that you can almost feel in the back of your mind. You have come upon something long hidden, a place lost to all but the most determined seekers. And it is here that the true nature of Hadad's exile is revealed. The stone tablet before you is not simply a relic. It is a key. The symbols upon it, though incomprehensible now, are a map, a path to deeper knowledge, perhaps even to Hadad himself. There is no question now that this temple was not just a place of worship, it was a place of transformation. The god was not merely a storm to be appeased. He was something far more complex, a force that could reshape reality itself. There is a passage in one of the ancient texts, you recall a fragment, half buried under the weight of centuries, that mentions a hidden temple of the storm, a place where the divine could be approached in its most raw and dangerous form. The people of the ancient world, it seems, were not just worshippers of Hadad. They were seekers, drawn by a power they could not resist, hoping to draw close to the god, to understand him in a way that was never meant to be understood. But these seekers paid a terrible price. Their devotion to the god of storms did not merely bring them divine favor, it reshaped them. Those who reached for the truth were changed, often beyond recognition. Some of them ascended, their bodies and spirits consumed by Hadad's power. Others were destroyed, their very essence torn apart by the raw force of the storm. The truth, it seems, was something that could not be contained by mortal minds. Hadad in his exile may have been forgotten by the world, but his power was always waiting, always calling. You approach the tablet, reaching out as if guided by an unseen force. Your fingers brush the surface of the stone, and in that moment, everything shifts. The air thickens, and the ground trembles beneath you. The stone burns with the heat of 1,000 storms, but you do not pull away. The symbols on the tablet begin to glow, faint at first, then more brightly, as if they are coming alive, pulling you into their mystery. And then, in the deepest recesses of your mind, a voice, a whisper, a murmur, pierces the silence. It is not the voice of a man, nor of a god. It is the voice of the storm itself, ancient and unyielding, and it speaks to you in a language older than time. You seek knowledge, mortal. But no, this the storm does not give without taking. Those who seek to control the divine will be consumed by it. The warning is clear, yet it is too late to turn back now. The storm calls to you, just as it has called to others before you. And now, standing in this temple of the forgotten, you are part of the storm's eternal cycle. You too will either be reborn by its fury or lost in it. The question remains, will you accept the storm's embrace, or will you flee, leaving the mysteries of the past behind? As the storm's presence settles into your bones, a deep, unsettling silence falls over the temple. You step back from the glowing tablet, its inscription still flickering with an unnatural light, and you feel an almost suffocating weight pressing down on your chest. It is the burden of knowledge, of having glimpsed something beyond mortal comprehension. And yet, even as the storm god's power surges through you, there is something more, a subtle force urging you onward. Deeper into the mysteries that this sacred place holds. You feel it first at your feet, the cold, smooth stone of the temple floor giving way to something rougher, sharper. Looking down, you see it, a symbol carved deep into the rock beneath you. It is unlike any of the familiar runes you've seen thus far. The symbol is angular, jagged, as though it had been etched by lightning itself. A thunderbolt wrapped around a spiral, its edges sharp and violent. It is a mark of power, of chaos, of the divine. The mark is unmistakable. It is the forbidden sigil of Hadad, the lightning bolt, a symbol that was once revered, but now feared. It is said that this mark was never meant to be seen by mortal eyes. It was reserved for the priests, those who could channel the divine power of the storm god. It was not merely an emblem of Hadad's power. It was the key to invoking his wrath and his favor. And yet this symbol, this curse, is not just an invitation to worship. It is a warning. You kneel before it, the air crackling around you with a terrible energy. And as your fingers trace the edges of the mark, you feel it, a surge of power, sharp and hot, like the first crack of thunder before a storm breaks. The ground shakes beneath you, the temple walls groaning as though they are waking from a long-forgotten slumber. It is a feeling you cannot describe, fully, a tremor in your very soul. As if the storm god himself is reaching through the veil of time, his divine presence pressing upon you. And then, in the midst of this rising tension, a sudden realization strikes you like a bolt of lightning. The mark you have found is no mere decoration. It is a summoning. Those who knew the power of the storm understood this sigil was not just an emblem, it was a doorway, bridge between mortal and divine. The forbidden mark of thunder was the key to unlocking the storm god's full potential. Those who dared to invoke it were given access to the very power that Hadad himself wielded. But the cost, as the legends warn, was steep. Many who attempted to wield such power were lost, their minds and bodies shattered by the sheer force of the storm. You tremble, realizing the significance of this discovery. You are standing on the threshold of a power so great, so ancient, that it transcends human understanding. The storm god does not merely control the elements. He is the embodiment of chaos itself, a force that can reshape the very fabric of reality. The mark of thunder is the symbol of his dominion over both life and death, creation and destruction. The temple hums with energy, the mark beneath you, pulsing in rhythm with your heartbeat. The storm is not just commit, has been summoned. You are no longer just a passive observer. You are a participant in a ritual that was never meant for mortals. And yet, despite the danger, you feel drawn to it. The temptation is too great, the call of the storm too powerful. But even as you reach for the mark, the voices of the past echo in your mind, voices of those who came before you, those who sought the storm and were consumed by it. There are whispers of rituals that went awry, of gods who became monsters, and mortals who were never seen again. The mark of thunder is not a gift, it is a test, a challenge, and a promise of devastation. To bear this mark is to invite the storm into your soul, to become one with its fury. And yet, you can't help but wonder, what if you were the one to master it? What if you could wield the storm as the ancient priests once did, channeling Hadad's power for your own purposes? Could you unlock the secrets of the storm god's exile? Could you break the cycle and restore the god to his rightful place among the heavens? The air grows heavy, thick with the weight of your decision. The storm is closer now, its presence growing more intense. You can hear it in the distance, a low rumbling that shakes the very ground beneath you. The winds stir, carrying with them the scent of rain, the taste of lightning on your lips. The mark beneath you glows brighter, calling to you, urging you to take the final step. But a deeper part of youth, the part that remembers the ancient warnings, knows the cost. The storm is not a force to be controlled. It is a force to be feared, a power that can consume everything in its path. The mark of thunder is both a blessing and a curse, a path to knowledge and power, but one that carries a price that few can afford to pay. As you stand before the mark, your hand hovering just above it, you realize that the storm goddess Exile was not just a punishment, it was a warning to all who would dare to wield his power. Hadad's storms are not for mortals to control. They are a reflection of the chaos that exists within all things, the balance between creation and destruction, life and death. To seek mastery over the storm is to risk losing everything that makes you human. But the storm calls, and you are standing on the edge. Will you answer it? The air around you crackles with an energy that is both intoxicating and terrifying. The forbidden mark of thunder pulses beneath your fingers, its jagged edges seeming to draw you closer, urging you to surrender to its power. The storm is coming. You can feel it in the very marrow of your bones. The storm god's presence is suffocating, overwhelming. And yet, in the face of such might, a part of you feels a pull, an irresistible desire to seize it, to drink deeply from the cup of divine power. You stand at the edge of the abyss, torn between the call of the storm and the whispers of caution that echo faintly in your mind. You know the risks, the stories of those who came before you, those who sought the storm and were consumed by it, haunt the edges of your thoughts. They were like you seeking power, seeking the answers that only Hadad could provide. And they too were drawn to the mark of thunder, the promise of the storm's limitless potential. But what they did not understand, what they failed to grasp, was the true nature of Hadad's power. The storm was not just a force of nature. It was a mirror reflecting the deepest desires, the darkest fears, the hidden chaos that lay dormant in every mortal soul. Those who sought to control it were not simply trying to tame the wind or bend the lightning to their will. They were seeking to control themselves, to master their own inner storms, their own capacity for destruction and renewal. And that, perhaps, was their undoing. The thirst for power is a dangerous thing. It begins as a whisper, a subtle temptation that grows louder with each passing moment. The storm god knows this, for he has watched mortals like you for centuries. The thirst for power begins as a desire to protect, to control, to shape the world around you. But it always leads to something darker. It always leads to a hunger for more. You can feel it now, the hunger stirring deep within you, like a fire igniting in the pit of your stomach. The storm is not just an external force, it is a reflection of the turmoil inside you. You know that if you give in to this thirst, if you let it consume you, you will never be the same. But part of you, perhaps the deepest part, longs for that transformation. To step beyond the limitations of mortal life, to touch the divine, to become something more than human. The legends of those who sought Hadad's favor speak of great power, powers that could alter the course of kingdoms, bend the very fabric of reality. And yet, none of them survived the consequences. The storm, once summoned, does not release its hold easily. It is not a force that can be tamed. No matter how desperately you wish to control it, thirst for power is a dangerous game, one that inevitably leads to madness. For the storm is not just an external force, it is a force that exists within every human heart, waiting for the moment when it can rise up uncontained. And yet, as you stand here, feeling the storm's power surging through you, you wonder, what if you could be the one who succeeds? What if you could unlock the true potential of the storm, harness it, wield it as no one has before? So what if in that power you could finally answer the questions that have driven you here, at the questions of Hadad's exile, the god's fall, and the hidden truths buried beneath the surface of this forgotten world? The storm whispers to you now, louder than ever, calling you to embrace the chaos, to give in to the madness that has claimed so many before you. The mark beneath your feet seems to pulse with a rhythm that matches your heartbeat, and you know that you are standing at a precipice, one step away from either greatness or destruction. The storm is waiting. The storm has always been waiting, but you must decide. Will you drink from the well of power, no matter the cost? Will you claim what is rightfully yours, no matter the consequences? Or will you turn away, leaving this place and its dangerous knowledge behind, knowing that the thirst for power will always haunt you? The winds howl louder, as though the very earth is urging you to make a choice. You are no longer simply an observer of the storm. You are a part of it, and the storm, as it always does, demands a price. As the storm god's power courses through your veins, you feel the weight of that price. It is not something that can be taken lightly. To wield the storm is to risk losing yourself, to become lost in the very chaos you seek to control. And yet, despite the warning, despite the fear that gnaws at the edges of your mind, you know that you will never be the same again. The thirst for power cannot be quenched, and once it has taken root in your soul, it will never let you go. The storm calls. The question is no longer whether you will answer it, but whether you can survive the consequences. The storm rages on, as if it cannot bear to be left alone. The winds scream, the thunder cracks the sky, and the earth trembles beneath your feet. There is something in the air now, something that was not there before. A shift, a change, an omen. You feel it first as a flicker, a strange tugging at the back of your mind. It grows, just a whisper at first, and then louder, stronger. It is a presence that reaches across the heavens, a sign that the storm is not just a force of nature, but a harbinger of something greater, something far older. It is the fallen star. You look to the sky, the blackened heavens swirling above you like a living thing. The storm clouds part just enough for you to see it, a streak of light blazing across the dark sky. It is unlike any star you've ever seen before. It is not the steady glow of a celestial body, but a comet star falling from the heavens. Its tail is long, a fiery trail that cuts through the storm as though it is an arrow, a message sent from the gods themselves. For a moment, the earth holds its breath, as if even it recognizes the significance of this event. And you, standing amidst the ruins of Hadad's forgotten temple, realize that you are witnessing a rare occurrence, a sign that the god is watching, that he is returning in some form. The fallen star is a symbol of the god's presence, a cosmic event that signifies the opening of a door between realms. It is a moment of profound significance, an omen that cannot be ignored. In the ancient texts, there is a reference to a star that fell from the sky, a sign of the storm god's descent into exile. This star, however, is not merely a sign of Hadad's anger or punishment. It is a herald of change, a divine message that signals the beginning of something new. But what does it mean? What does the fallen star signify? There are no clear answers, no concrete interpretations. Some say it is a symbol of the god's return, a precursor to the storm that will once again rule the earth. Others claim it is the death of a god, a final, fiery farewell, as Hadad's power fades into the cosmos. But what if it is neither? What if the fallen star is not a sign of rebirth or death, but of something else entirely, a shift in the cosmic balance, a warning of things to come? You feel it now deep within your soul. The storm is not merely a force of nature, not just a god's fury. It is a manifestation of something far older, something that predates even Hadad himself. The storm, the lightning, the thunder, it is all part of a greater cycle, one that has been unfolding for eons, a cycle of destruction and rebirth, of gods and mortals, of life and death. The fallen star is a reminder of the fragility of the world, of the transitory nature of the gods themselves. No god, not even Hadad, is immortal. The storm god may have been exiled, but he was never truly gone. The fallen star is his message, his return, but it is also a reminder that nothing in this world, no power, no being, no god can last forever. As the comet fades from view, the storm quiets, its fury dampened for a moment. You stand in the silence, feeling the weight of what you have just witnessed. The fallen star is no simple celestial event. It is a divine gesture, a cosmic shift, and you know that it is not just a warning of Hadad's return, it is a call to you. For a moment you wonder if you are merely a witness, an observer of the storm's fury. But deep down you understand. The storm has never been a force to be controlled. It's never been a simple tool of the gods. It is something far more complex, a force that connects the heavens and the earth, the gods and mortals, in a cycle of constant change. And now, the storm calls to you, just as it has called to those who came before you. The fallen star was the beginning, but the end is still to come. What will you do with this knowledge? Will you turn away, as the king once did, seeking to escape the storm? Or will you embrace it, surrendering yourself to its power, and allowing it to transform you as it transformed those before you? The storm rages on, but its meaning is clear. It is not the return of a god, it is the return of a cycle. The storm, like all forces of nature, cannot be contained, can only be embraced or destroyed. And as the winds pick up again, whipping around you, you realize that you have already made your choice. You are no longer just a witness or part of the storm. You are no longer standing alone. The winds howl louder now, stirring dust and debris into the air. The storm surges as though it feels the weight of your decision, the full impact of the choices that now lie before you. The whispers grow louder, shifting in the air around you, voices from the past, echoes of those who walked this path before. And then, just as the first raindrops begin to fall, you see her. She stands before you, or perhaps within you, a figure draped in the tattered remnants of once sacred garments, her eyes hollow, her presence faint but undeniable. She is a priestess, one of Hadad's last, the last to serve the storm god, the last to remember his true nature, the last to speak his name in devotion. Her appearance is spectral, as if she is both part of the storm and part of the earth, a reflection of the god whose name she once held sacred. She moves with a slow grace, her steps soft upon the cracked stone floor, as though she were made of mist or dream. The winds seem to respond to her, bending around her form, as though they recognize her, acknowledge her as a relic of a time long gone. She is the last living link to Hadad's worship, the final voice that still remembers the old prayers, the old rituals. And now, she is lost. Her soul, it seems, has been worn down by the weight of the years, by the exile of her god and the fading of her people. Her eyes meet yours, and you feel the weight of centuries pressing down upon you. Her gaze is not one of warmth, but of sorrow. The kind of sorrow that only comes from knowing a truth too painful to bear. Do you hear it? She whispers, her voice barely audible over the wind, yet it cuts through the chaos like a sharp blade. The storm does not forgive. It never has. The words hang in the air, heavy with a truth that you cannot ignore. The priestess steps closer, her form becoming more defined, as though the very air around you thickens with the weight of her presence. Her features are marked with the passage of time, her hair silvered with age, her skin weathered and worn, but her eyes, they remain sharp, filled with the memory of a lost faith. Of a God who once answered the prayers of men, and now answers only to his own fury. Once, she continues, I stood where you stand now, calling upon Hadad to answer my prayers. I believed in his power. I believed that the storms were a gift, that the lightning was a sign of his favor. But I was wrong, Ray. Her voice falters for a moment, as though the weight of those words is too much to bear, and then she gathers herself again. The storm was never a blessing. It was a test, a trial, and those who sought its favor, they paid the price. You feel a chill run through you. The priestess speaks not with anger, but with a deep, resigned sorrow, as though she has come to terms with the loss of everything she once believed. Hadad's worship, once a source of hope and power, has become a path to destruction. The storm god's exile was not a punishment, it was a cleansing, a removal of those who would dare to harness his power. You cannot control the storm, she says, her voice low and strained, as though each word costs her something. No mortal can, not even the gods. She pauses, her eyes distant, as if seeing something beyond you, something you cannot yet comprehend. Do you think the star falling from the sky is a sign of his return? She asks, her tone growing bitter, tinged with regret. And it is not. It is the end. The storm god's power was never meant for us. We were meant to serve him, to be his vessels. But that was a lie. That was the mistake of the ages. She lifts a hand, her fingers trembling with the weight of unspoken truths. She gestures to the storm swirling around you, the wind tugging at your clothes, the lightning that flashes too close to the ground. This is not his return. It is his wrath, his fury unleashed upon the world once more. And it is not a force to be taken lightly. The priestess steps back, her figure beginning to fade, like smoke dissipating in the wind. I was a fool, she whispers, her voice barely a breath in the storm's roar. And now I am lost, just as Hadad's worship is lost. The storm does not return what it takes, it only consumes. Her form vanishes completely, leaving only the echo of her words behind, a warning lost in the endless howl of the storm. And you are left standing in the ruins, the weight of her words pressing down upon you like the storm itself. What is it you seek now? Power? Knowledge? Or is it something else entirely? The desire to uncover the truth of Hadad's exile, to understand why he was cast from the heavens, to comprehend the true cost of invoking his wrath. The storm rages around you, but the answer is clear. The storm cannot be controlled. It cannot be wielded as a tool. It can only be embraced, or it will destroy you. You stand in the aftermath of the priestess's lament, realizing that she was right. There is no return from this, no going back. The storm calls, but it calls for a price. And it is a price that not even the gods could ever truly pay. The winds have died down for a moment, leaving behind a stillness that feels unnatural. The storm, though distant for now, continues to pulse like a heartbeat at the edge of your senses. It is not going to knit, is waiting, as the very air around you crackles with the promise of its return, a force beyond your control, beyond your understanding. As you stand amidst the ruins of the forgotten temple, the words of the priestess echo in your mind. The storm does not forgive. It never has. There is truth in those words, a truth that stirs something deep within you, something primal. The storm god Hadad has always been both creator and destroyer. And now, as you stand on the precipice, you begin to understand that his power is not a blessing to be used, but a force that must be respected, feared, and above all survived. You turn your gaze back to the horizon, where the clouds still churn, where the storm threatens to break free once again. The lightning that flashes from within the dark sky seems to pulse with an unnatural rhythm, as though it recognizes your presence, as though it is calling to you, urging you to take part in its eternal dance of chaos and creation. The storm has always been a part of you, hasn't it? Even before you came here, Before you stumbled upon the ruins and the altar, you have felt the stirrings of the storm deep within your soul. The hunger for power, the desire to understand, the thirst for something greater, something that can shatter the limitations of mortal existence. You have been drawn to it, as all those before you were. The storm calls, and you are its answer. But now, standing in the heart of this forgotten place, you realize that the storm is not something to be answered lightly. It is not just a force of nature. It is a reflection of the chaos within all of us. It is a symbol of both creation and destruction, of life and death, of power and ruin. The storm's call is not a summons to control or conquer. It is a call to surrender, to be remade, to lose yourself in its fury and emerge from the other side, if you survive. The priestess's warning lingers in your mind, a haunting refrain. The storm does not return what it takes. She spoke the truth. Hadad's power, once a gift to his followers, is now a curse wild, untamable force that will consume anything in its path. The people of Canaan, once devoted to him, sought to control the storm, to bend it to their will. They failed, as you would fail if you tried to harness it for yourself. The storm is not something to be commanded. It is something that commands you. To seek to control it is to risk becoming lost, consumed by the very chaos that you sought to master. And yet, despite the warning, you cannot turn away. You feel it, deep in your core. The storm's pull, its power. It is not just a distant god. It is a part of you now. The god of storms is not something that can be left behind. The mark of thunder, the altar, the lightning you are bound to it, just as the storm is bound to the earth. And so, you step forward. The storm's call is louder now, its presence more tangible. You feel the earth tremble beneath you, the winds stirring once again, as though they recognize your decision. The storm is not waiting anymore, it is here. Its power is already in you. The question is no longer whether you can control it. It is whether you will be consumed by it. The air around you grows heavier with every passing second, charged with the raw energy of the storm that is now fully upon you. The wind picks up and you can taste the sharpness of lightning in the air. The very ground seems to shake with anticipation. You feel the pulse of the storm in your veins, like an electric current racing through your body. The storm is alive, and so are you, in a way that you were not before. You are no longer just an observer. You are part of it, part of the god's power, part of the chaos that rules both the heavens and the earth. But with that realization comes a truth even more unsettling. The storm does not forgive. It does not forget. It will take what it needs, and it will not return it. Hadad's power is not something to be wielded. It is something to be endured. And you now are standing in the heart of it, bound to its fury bound to you. You wonder, briefly, if the priestess knew this all along. If she too had stood here, feeling the storm's pull, and believing at one time that she could control it. Had she too felt the storm in her bones, the hunger for something more, something divine? Had she too believed she could survive its call? The winds roar louder, and the first flash of lightning cuts across the sky. The storm is here, and it is not waiting. It is not asking. It is simply taking, as it always has. And now, it is your turn. The storm calls, and you must answer. But will you survive it? Will you be remade by its fury? Or will you be consumed by it, lost to the chaos of Hadad's eternal rage? There is no turning back now. Storm waits, and you stand at the edge of its fury. The storm grows stronger, its howling winds pressing against you with the weight of its fury. Each flash of lightning illuminates the chaos around you now. It is not just the storm that is alive, but the entire world. You stand at the heart of it, caught in its grip. The air hums with raw energy, and you can feel the storm reaching deeper into your soul, pulling you further into its depths. But there is more to this storm than the raw power of nature. There is a darker truth, one that had been hidden, buried beneath the surface of Hadad's worship, the corruption of the faith itself. The storm, which had once been revered as a force of creation and renewal, has been twisted. The god, once a protector, has become a tool for those who sought power, a power that could not be controlled. And those who dared to wield it, those who corrupted the faith, were not just lost to the storm, but consumed by it. You feel the pull of those who came before you, the ones who were drawn to Hadad's power in the same way you have been. The same hunger for control, the same thirst for knowledge, the same desire to reshape the world with divine power, but they made a fatal mistake. They did not seek to serve the god. They sought to master him, to bend him to their will. And in doing so, they became part of the storm's eternal cycle, consumed by it, twisted into something that was no longer human. The storm does not belong to the mortal realm. It does not exist to serve the needs of men or gods. It is a force beyond comprehension, beyond understanding. And yet there were those who believed they could tame it. They believed they could control the storm, just as they had once controlled the rituals and sacrifices that accompanied Hadad's worship. But what they did not understand was this: the storm, like the god it represents, cannot be controlled, cannot be manipulated. To attempt to do so is to lose oneself in it, to be corrupted by its power, to be lost in the very chaos that the storm embodies. There are whispers of a sect, a group of heretics who sought to twist Hadad's power for their own ends. They did not honor the god as he was meant to be honored. Instead, they turned the rituals into tools of domination. They sought to harness the storm's power to control, to bend the world to their desires. And in doing so, they became more than mere mortals. They became something else, something darker, something beyond human understanding. You have read the fragments, the half-destroyed texts that tell the story of these heretics. Their rituals grew darker and darker as they delved deeper into the storm's power. They began to perform forbidden rites that were never meant to be known, let alone practiced. They invoked Hadad's power not to commune with the god, but to force him into submission, to turn his storms into weapons. They used lightning as a weapon, summoned thunder as a tool for control, and they twisted the god's wrath into something cruel, something savage. But the storm, as always, is untamable. It cannot be twisted to the will of mortals. The heretics were destroyed, their bodies and minds shattered by the very forces they sought to control. The storm does not forgive those who seek to dominate it. It only consumes. As you stand in the heart of the storm, you realize that the same temptation that led the heretics to ruin lies before you now. You too feel the hunger for power, for control. You too are tempted to bend the storm to your will, to understand it in a way that others could not. But deep down you know that to do so would be to repeat the mistakes of the past. To do so would be to become just another lost soul, consumed by the storm's endless rage. The storm calls to you, but you must resist. You must not let it corrupt you as it corrupted those who came before. You must not fall into the trap of believing that you can control it, that you can harness its power for your own purposes. The storm is not a tool. It is not a weapon. It is a force of nature, a force of the divine, and it must be respected as such. And yet, as the winds howl around you, you can feel the pull. The desire to claim the storm as your own, to use it as the heretics once did, is strong. It calls to something deep inside you, the same hunger, the same thirst for knowledge and power that has driven you this far. But you cannot give in. To do so would be to lose yourself, to become nothing more than another victim of the storm's unyielding fury. You stand at the crossroads now, caught between the storm's call and the dark temptation to control it. The path before you is unclear, but one thing is certain: you must choose. Will you succumb to the same corruption that claimed the heretics, or will you resist, allowing the storm to rage without your interference? The winds pick up again, the storm growing ever stronger. The sky darkens, and the lightning crackles overhead. You can feel the power of Hadad's wrath surging through you, urging you to make your choice. Will you embrace the storm, or will you turn away, leaving it to rage on without you? There is no easy answer. The storm's power is beyond your comprehension. And yet, you stand on the precipice, ready to make the choice that will shape your fate. The storm calls, but only you can decide whether you will answer. And then, as quickly as it began, the storm quiets. The winds fall to a soft murmur, the once violent clouds now lying heavy and still above you. The lightning retreats, leaving only the flickering echoes of its fury in the distance. The world holds its breath, the thunder now a distant, fleeting sound. The ground beneath your feet, still trembling from the storm's power, begins to settle, and you are left alone in the uneasy calm. The quiet is almost worse than the storm. It is an unnatural stillness, a silence that carries the weight of centuries. quiet where even the earth itself seems afraid to speak. You stand in the midst of it, feeling the pressure of the silence weigh upon you like a heavy shroud. The echoes of the storm's fury still hum in your bones, reverberating like the last fading notes of an ancient song. But the storm itself is gone for now, and in its wake, only the silence remains. The priestess' S-words linger in your mind. The storm does not return what it takes. The storm has come and gone, its power unleashed, its fury spent, but the cost is still unknown. The world is not the same. You are not the same. The choice you made standing at the heart of the storm has altered the course of things, but how exactly is yet to be revealed. And yet there is something more, something deeper beneath the surface of this silence. The storm did not leave without leaving its mark. The world may be quiet now, but the very fabric of reality feels thin, as though the veil between the mortal realm and something else has been torn open. There is a lingering sense that something ancient, something forgotten, is waiting just beyond the edge of perception, watching, listening. For the storm is not gone. It is merely hidden, waiting for the right moment to return. The silence is but a prelude to something darker, something older. The world has changed, but so have you. And the storm, which seemed so distant before, now feels impossibly close, a presence just beyond your reach, whispering in the stillness, urging you to listen. But what is it you are supposed to hear? There are whispers of the forgotten, murmurs of those who have walked this path before you, those who sought the storm, who sought to understand the God of thunder and lightning. Some of them vanished into the storm, never to return. Others left behind only cryptic messages, warnings of the cost of invoking Hadad's power. There are stories of the storm god's power reaching far beyond the physical world, of mortals being swept into the storm's grasp, their bodies and souls lost to the chaos. What is it then that you seek? What is it you truly wish to understand? The storm is not something that can be comprehended by mortal minds. It is a force beyond time, beyond reason. A force that exists both within and outside the world. Its power was not simply that of the storm, it was a reflection of the chaos within all things, of the destruction and creation that constantly battle for dominance. And yet, as the silence stretches on, you can feel it, the tug, the pull, the beckoning of something deeper, something hidden beneath the storm's surface. The storm may be silent now, but it is not gone. And the veil between this world and the next is thinner than ever. You realize then that the storm was never meant to be understood. It was never meant to be controlled. It was meant to change you, to alter the very core of your being. You are not the same as you were when you first stepped into this temple. The storm has marked you, just as it has marked so many before you. You have crossed the threshold, and there is no returning to the way things were. The silence is not peace. It is a waiting. The storm is not finished with you. It is merely biding its time, waiting for you to act, waiting for you to make your final choice. The storm's call, though quiet now, still lingers in your soul. You cannot escape it. You cannot outrun it. You are part of it now, part of the cycle of creation and destruction that the storm embodies. But you wonder what happens when the silence ends? When the storm returns, what will it ask of you? Will you be able to answer? Will you be able to withstand its fury a second time, or will you be consumed by it, lost to the storm's insatiable hunger? The silence is heavy with these questions, and though the storm is distant, you know its return is inevitable. The storm will come again, as it always has, and you will be there, caught in its fury, bound by its power. And yet a small part of you wonders, what if the silence is not just the calm before the storm? What if the silence is the storm's true nature, waiting to be revealed? What if the storm, in all its power and fury, is just a mask for something older, something more ancient, something that lies beneath the thunder and lightning, beneath the roar of the winds? You stand at the edge of the storm, the world silent around you, and you realize that the storm is not something that can be escaped. It is part of you, and you are part of it. There is no going back. But there is more. There is always more. The veil of silence is lifting, and the storm is waiting for the moment when it can return. The question is not if it will come, but when. And when it does, you will be ready. A shiver of realization creeps down your spine as the air around you stirs again, though not with the ferocity of the storm you once knew. This time, the wind is a whisper soft, hesitant, as though reluctant to awaken the god. But the silence has already been broken, and what was once hidden in the darkness begins to emerge. There is no turning back now. The storm is not finished, not gone, and its power still lingers beneath the surface, waiting for the moment when the veil will fall completely. But you are not alone. In the shadow of the temple's crumbling walls, the last of the forgotten whispers beckons you forward. They come not in a whirlwind, but in the careful step of someone who has been waiting for you all along. Figure. A shadow, stepping from the depths of the storm's aftermath. She is the last witness, the last of those who truly understood the cost of invoking Hadad's power. The last one who survived the storm's fury and lived to speak its name. Her form is spectral, half-formed in the air, yet undeniably present. Her presence fills the space around you, a quiet weight that presses in on your senses. She is no priestess of the past, no soul lost to the storm like those who went before. She is something more, something older, a being that has watched the storm unfold through the ages. A silent observer who saw the rise and fall of gods, and the destruction that followed. Her face is worn with age, her eyes tired but still filled with knowledge. She has lived through the cycles of the storm, bearing witness to its power. Yet there is no joy in her eyes, only the deep sorrow of someone who understands far too much. She has watched the same tragic story unfold, time and time again. Now, as the storm stirs once more, she is here to share the last unfinished tale. "You are the last," she whispers, her voice soft yet unwavering. As though she has been waiting for your arrival, the storm calls to you, but you must not answer. Not like the others did. They thought they could master it. They thought they could control what they did not understand. You feel the weight of her gaze, and the echo of centuries fills your ears, the sound of gods rising, of mortals seeking power they could not comprehend, of the storm's fury crashing down on all who dared to challenge it. You are the last to hear it, she continues, the last to know what they never understood. And in knowing, you will become something else. But will you survive what comes next? You are left with a choice, one that has not been presented to any before you. The storm will not stop. It will return, as it always has, bringing both destruction and creation. But the way you approach it will decide your fate. Will you stand apart, separate from the storm, or will you dive into its chaos and become part of its eternal cycle? But what does this last witness mean by something else? Her words hang in the air, shrouded in mystery. Could it be that the storm itself is not just a manifestation of Hadad's wrath, but something more? A force that transcends even the god, a primordial chaos that reshapes reality, regardless of divine will. The witness steps closer, her ethereal form fading and reforming with each movement. The storm does not seek to change the world, she says, her tone almost mournful. It seeks to change you, to reshape your soul. Once you walk into its fury, you become part of it, and there is no returning. Her words leave an indelible mark on your soul. The storm is not a tool for domination, it is a force of transformation, and once you are touched by it, you are never the same. Those who sought to control it, the heretics, the kings, the priests, were all lost because they believed they could wield the storm as a weapon, but it was never meant to be controlled. It was meant to reshape, to unravel, to destroy what is, and rebuild something new in its place. The last witness pauses, her form flickering, as if the very essence of her is tied to the storm itself. "You must choose," she says softly, a tear almost visible in the corner of her eye, "to stand apart from it, or to let it consume you completely." And then, as if the storm has heard her words, the winds stir once again, the clouds above darkening. The distant rumble of thunder echoes in your chest. The veil is lifting, storm is rising, and the last witness now fading. Like smoke on the wind, leaves you with one final truth. There are no more gods, not like before. The storm is the last, the only one left, and you are its inheritor. With that, she vanishes, her presence dissipating into the storm, leaving only the endless roar of wind and the weight of her words. You stand alone now, but the path before you is clearer than ever. Hadad's exile, the storm god's fury, the corrupted worship hall of it, was merely a prelude to this moment. The storm does not return, it simply waits. And when it does return, it will not be to punish or reward. It will return to transform, to consume, and to leave something new in its wake. The storm's call is no longer distant. It is right before you, its winds howling in your ears, its lightning crackling in the sky. The choice is yours. Will you stand alone, untouched by the storm's power? Or will you become one with it, answering the call to be remade in the image of something older, something far beyond mortal understanding? The storm waits for you to decide. The winds swirl, and the earth trembles beneath your feet. You are the last witness. The winds have picked up again, but this time, there is no hesitation. The storm roars in full fury, its power crackling across the sky as it answers the call, its lightning flashing brighter, more violently than before. The very heavens seem to open, the clouds swirling in patterns that could only be described as deliberate, as if the storm itself has a purpose. The air is thick with the charge of impending chaos. You can feel the power thrumming through you beneath your skin, in your bones, in your heartbeat. The storm is no longer just an external force, something distant and untamable. It is inside you, part of you. There is no longer a distinction between you and the storm. But what does this mean? What does it mean to inherit the storm? The question lingers, unanswered, as you stand at the precipice of transformation. There is no more clarity. There is no easy answer. Only the storm and the promise of rebirth it carries. The storm god's return is not a return to what was. It is a return to something else entirely. The ground beneath your feet trembles once more, but it is not fear that grips you now. It is understanding. The storm is not just a god's wrath, it is a force of nature, one that exists beyond gods and mortals alike. It does not return to restore what was lost. It returns to tear down the old and make way for something new. The storm is not a creator, and destroyer is both and more. It is the space between things. It is the collapse of time and order. It is the great reset. You are part of this. You are both the witness and the inheritor. There is no turning back. Cannot return to who you once were, and perhaps that is the very nature of Hadad's power. Transformation. The storm god's exile was not just a divine punishment, it was a rebirth, a shedding of the old, a necessity for change. Hadad may have been cast out, but his storm has always been alive, hidden beneath the surface of the world, waiting for the right moment to be unleashed once more. And now, that moment has arrived. The storm intensifies, lightning flashing so violently that the world around you is momentarily swallowed in blinding light. For a split second, you lose all sense of self, as though your very essence has been pulled into the storm itself, a part of its endless churn. The wind howls in your ears, the thunder roars like a deep, primordial voice, and for the first time, you truly understand. Hadad's exile was not a death, it was a transformation. The god was never gone. He was simply waiting for a mortal who would step into the storm and emerge reborn. You feel it now? The god is within you. His storm is your storm. It is no longer about controlling it, about seeking favor from it. It is about surrendering to it, becoming a part of its endless cycle. The god's return is not an event, it is an awakening, and you are the one who has awakened it. The air is thick with electricity, and for a moment, time seems to stretch. You feel the earth move beneath your feet, as though the very ground itself is being torn asunder by the storm's power. The sky above is a swirling, churning mass of clouds, and the storm god's presence is everywhere. It is not just in the lightning or the thunder, it is in the very space around you, the crackling energy that fills every moment. And then it stops. The storm ceases as suddenly as it began, leaving only the lingering echo of its power in the air. The winds still stir, but the intensity has faded, leaving you standing in the remnants of the chaos alone. Yet, you are not the same as you were. The silence that follows is heavy, but it is not the absence of the storm. It is the stillness after creation. The calm after the fire has burned. The world feels different now, changed. The storm has passed, but its mark remains embedded deep within you. Hadad's power has not just passed through, it has become a part of you. The storm god's return was never meant to restore what was. It was meant to change everything. The storm was never about power or control. It was about transformation. And now, as the sky clears and the winds die down, you realize that the god's exile was not his punishment. It was his liberation. You stand at the threshold, the last witness and the inheritor of Hadad's storm. What will you do with this power, this transformation? The storm is not gone. It is in you and it will never leave. Will you seek to control it, to use it as others once tried? Or will you embrace its chaotic nature and allow it to guide you into something new, something unknown? The storm calls again, but this time, it is no longer a question of answering. It is simply a part of you, a part of the world. It is the pulse of existence itself, the eternal cycle of creation and destruction. You, the last witness, the inheritor of the storm, know this truth. The storm will never truly end. It will always return again and again, reshaping the world with every lightning strike, every thunderous roar. And so too, will you forever changed, forever a part of the god's eternal cycle. If your candle hasn't gone out, then you're probably ready for the next god. The storm fades, but its echoes linger in the corners of your mind, woven into the very fabric of your being. It is not something you can escape, nor would you want to. The world around you has returned to some semblance of calm, yet you know it is not the same. It has been transformed, just as you have. You walk through the remnants of the storm, feeling its pulse in the air. In the very earth beneath your feet, the storm is within you, around you, and it always will be. As you move through the world now, the sky seems different. The wind whispers in strange, forgotten languages, carrying with it the scent of rain, of earth, of lightning. The storm is always there, waiting for its moment, waiting for the right time to break free again. And you know, deep within your soul, that you will be there when it does part of it. Part of the world, part of the eternal cycle that the storm represents. The knowledge you carry, the understanding of Hadad's exile and return, is no longer a burden, it is a gift. The storm god's fury, his power, is no longer something to fear. It is something to embrace, to live with. It is the storm of life, of existence itself. It is creation and destruction, chaos and order, life and death. All things are born from the storm, and all things return to it in the end. You have crossed the threshold. You are no longer the same. You are bound to the storm, just as the storm is bound to you. The winds of change will always blow, the lightning will always strike, and the thunder will always roll. The storm god has returned not in a flash of fury, but in the quiet understanding that his power is not just something to be controlled. It is something to be lived, to be experienced, to be understood in the deepest corners of your soul. And as you stand beneath the still, quiet sky, a whisper reaches your ears. It is faint, but unmistakable. It is the voice of the storm, calling to you once again, carrying with it the ancient truths of the world. You know what it means now? It is not a call to power, nor a call to control. It is a call to remember, to listen, to feel the world as it is, as it always has been, as it always will be. There are more gods, the whisper says, but only for those who truly listen. Storm is eternal, and so too are the gods that walk with it. You are ready now for whatever comes next, whatever god or storm may rise. You have answered the call, embraced the storm, and emerged into a new world. Now, when the storm comes again, you will not be afraid. You will not run. You will be part of it. And you will know that, in the end, the storm is not your enemy. It is your rebirth. And so, as the storm whispers one last time, you are left with the truth. The next whisper is older still, but only for those who truly listen.